Our chapter for the Borders video is Chapter 9, titled Raising Kindness, Cultural Notions about Raising Kids Who Care. The main point is that some parents recognize their child's disruptive and inappropriate behaviors, but insist that fostering individuality in their child is more important than fostering kindness, as stated on page 212 of Parenting Without Borders. Early in the chapter, it is expressed that parents strive to teach their young children kindness and manners early on, such as please, thank you, or I'm sorry when doing something wrong, and also signs of respect such as eye contact, polite greetings, or shaking hands. Also in the chapter, ideas are expressed as to which ways are most effective in raising children who know the importance and values of being kind. Some suggest that it is more respectful and healthier for children to express themselves however they may want, without imposing societal standards on them. This allows room to let one's child be themselves and the chance to work with them and teach them a lesson when they do not do the right thing. One very interesting study conducted on college freshmen was expressed throughout the chapter. In 1970, the primary goal of these college freshmen was to develop a meaningful life philosophy. The same study was conducted in 2005 and showed that the main goal switched to becoming comfortably rich. Society's empathy had clearly declined over time. This self-centered idea of ranking one's own happiness before the good of other people has failed to shape a culture of raising kids to be kind and to care for others. Teaching your child to be kind begins at a certain age. When children are too young, there is no use in telling them to be polite or to apologize when making a mistake, since they won't know what the mistake was or the situation that called for politeness. The best way is to be a model and let them see an example of such politeness. When they are of age and aware of their actions, that is the time to point them in the direction of kindness and politeness. Parents who teach their children to speak with honesty, but do not teach them to be considerate, send their children the message that it is better to be honest and true to yourself, even if that means you hurt someone else. In the chapter, Japanese cultural values of raising children were expressed. Starting when children are just toddlers, they learn the importance of polite greetings throughout the everyday conversation, just by watching the parents and caregivers. Another cultural notion about raising children who care comes from the thought of compassion for others. Many children are raised in today's society to the norms of getting what they want or to not have any manners whatsoever. On page 225 of Parenting Without Borders, psychologist Sean Smith states his theory that it's not compassion that precedes manners, but manners that create the feelings of compassion. Children aren't born with manners and respect. They learn it from their adults and peers around them. One final thought in the last section is that oftentimes social awkwardness in children is mistaken for rudeness. These children are just inexperienced in the correct ways to behave because they have not been put in these situations times before. Practice in these situations and learning what they may have done incorrectly throughout different cultures is the way these children are shaped to become polite individuals who care for others while they mature.
In this chapter, Gross talks about raising kids who care. Specifically, I'm going to focus on the section where he emphasizes balancing kindness and assertiveness. In this section, Gross states, many American parents correctly believe in the importance of teaching their children to stand up for themselves, claiming that being able to say what you think without being fettered gives children power over their lives. Personally, having parents from two different cultural backgrounds, I was taught this ideology, but in two very different ways. Gross goes on to say, although as parents we must teach our children to speak up when they are in danger in order to keep them safe, we have an equal responsibility to teach them to be conscientious and kind on a daily basis. In a sense, these were the two ideas that I was raised on based on my split cultural background. My mother is from an American cultural background, while my father is from a Mexican cultural background. My dad always taught me to stand up for not only me, but for my family and friends and anybody really, always making the claim to use the voice that many think we don't have. We referring to anybody of a minority race, or anybody in general. He always taught me to stand my ground, and if it came to it, to fight. Pride is a huge thing in the Mexican culture, and he always taught me to have pride for not only my culture, but for every aspect of my life. And I was definitely raised with that mentality when it came to my dad. My parents were divorced got divorced when I was very young, so I was raised on two different mentalities in two different households for 50 to 50% of my life. As for my mom, I was also taught to stand up for myself, but to also be very understanding. For example, if someone said something mean, or if a kid pushed me, I was taught to just walk away, and to think and understand that maybe they're just having a bad day. But I was taught if it kept going, then to stand up and say something for yourself, but never to get violent, and to just have that second of understanding that maybe their life is not as good as yours, or they're just having a bad moment, or their home situation isn't good, but to always have that sort of thinking moment before letting out so much pride, like my dad taught, like to have that sense of kindness rather than assertiveness. So I was raised on two different cultural mentalities, but I think that gave me the perfect balance of assertiveness and kindness.
The central claim for this chapter is about how kindness, respectfulness, and manners are highly sought out for, especially in younger children. These manners have been slowly diminishing in the United States over the past couple decades. In this chapter, it tells us about the ways we can help children develop this awareness of others so that they could be a little more collectivistic rather than individualistic. Forcing a child to apologize alone isn't going to teach them empathy. Acknowledging other people's feelings and showing awareness of others in general can teach them empathy. This can mean greeting people hello, goodbye, simple things like this. Simply by acknowledging others, we are thinking outside of ourselves, which can lead to more mindful thinking, being more mindful of others. The best way to teach children, even infants, about being mindful and courteous is through modeling, doing it ourselves and showing them the best way to behave.